Welcome. I'm Tricia McDonough Ryan, Pediatric Neuropsychologist in the United States and part of the Empower Vela Ukraine Summer Program Project. Today I'll be talking about session 3 in our program and offering you another way to help learn about how the brain works. Today's learning objectives will be to understand the hand model of the brain and recognize how you might use this hand model to help kids understand how their brain works and how to control their emotions. You'll recall from our last session that we reviewed the different lobes of the brain, including the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal, and occipital lobes, as well as the cerebellum and the brainstem. And we discussed how there are neural connections that happen throughout the brain to help connect these different parts of the brain. And that this development emerges and reaches its strongest connections over the course of a child's life up until the early 20s, mid-20s, but continues to grow and make connections after that. And that these connections happen and are developed from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. And where the back, you'll recall the cerebellum, which is involved in our motor movement and coordination. And there are connections that go all the way up to the frontal part of the brain, which is where we are involved in the regulation, the planning, organization, the higher order thinking, the highest aspect of what makes humans different from non-human primates. And that there's also a connection from these lobes to the brainstem. And that these connections happen spontaneously, as well as they are a function of what is going on in a child's environment, what a child is exposed to, and this can include the positive things as well as things that can be detrimental. These connections also happen in an age-appropriate way, and that hygiene factors also contribute to these connections and the health of these connections, which would include nutrition, sleep, and exercise, for example. You'll recall from our last session here in the blue, we have what's called our limbic area, and this includes the amygdala, and it also includes our hippocampus. In this area, we often refer to as one that houses emotions and memories. And then in this more brown area is our frontal cortex. And that cortex is a regulator and has connections to regulate our emotions and our memories, as also connections back to the cerebellum. And each of these also connects to the brainstem. I'm going to help you understand this and how this relates to our emotions through a hand-brain model. So I'm going to hold up my hand. You can see there, the bottom of your screen. In this part of my hand, I want you to consider this as representing the brain stem right here. Okay, and the brainstem goes all the way down your spine. And your brainstem helps regulate breathing, heart rate, and it partners with alerting systems throughout your body for your brain and your brain back down to your body. Okay, now I want you to take your thumb and you're going to tuck your thumb into your palm. Notice the curve here. And this is your limbic system. Your tucked away thumb is an area that houses your emotions, and it has connections to your brainstem, which help you understand and control how your body feels in response to emotions, or emotions you might feel in response to your body sensations. Together, this limbic area and the brainstem we'll think of as our big emotions, where our big emotions lie, as well as our fight, flight, and freeze instincts. When these are left open, there's no cover over them. Your body and emotions respond to the environment. And often that's good. If we're in danger, we need to be alerted. We need to engage that fight, flee, or freeze system. We need to engage in our big emotions, which can include anger. It could include joy. It can include fear, and respond to our environment. But sometimes we also need control, more control over those emotions. And we close our hand over the limbic system. And this is the folding or putting the lid over the emotions or putting a cap over it. This area, this fist area on the outside in the knuckles, this represents your frontal lobe. This is the regulator. Remember, this is where you've got responsibility is held for your thinking and your controlling and speaking and organization of yourself and regulation of this limbic system. Notice the connection between this thumb and the cover over it. And we're going to call this cover area, this is our wise leader. This is our leader who helps regulate our thoughts and our emotions. Behind here is where your cerebellum is. Remember, your cerebellum is for movement, coordination. Notice it connects to the frontal lobe for coordinated movement and regulation, and for our higher order thinking, including our attention and executive system. And then we've got the connection to the brainstem. We're going to call this area here, it connects to the brainstem, connects to the frontal lobe, which connects to the cerebellum, again back here, sorry. We're going to call that the movement facilitator back here, the cerebellum. Sometimes we'll refer to a situation when someone has flipped their lid. If you've ever heard that saying, what's happened is their emotional system has become out of control. Their wise leader is no longer engaged. The leader is the lid that keeps things under control. The wise leader is no longer engaged, leaving the limbic system and the brainstem open to respond to their environment. And again, flipping the lid is sometimes a good thing because you want to be able to respond appropriately in situations of fear. But it's not always appropriate. Sometimes you need to help regulate yourself. I'm going to show you a short video that's animated that you may want to show to kids to help understand this better.
Ever felt a big reaction to something and not known why? Here's a way to help you understand your brain and manage your behaviour. The hand model of the brain. The bottom of your hand represents the brainstem and is involved with the automatic physical processes that keep us alive, like breathing and our heart rate. Your thumb is your limbic system, and with your brainstem forms part of your emotional brain. This helps you to manage and understand your feelings and stress responses. The outside of your hand and fingers are your cortex, or your thinking brain. When the thinking and emotional brain work together, it's easier to manage your emotions, talk with others, and problem solve. But if you feel surprised, unsafe or scared, your emotional brain takes immediate action. It can act much faster without working with your thinking brain, so you flip your lid. If you're in real danger, acting fast can help keep you safe, and that's really important. And then when the danger has passed, your lid comes back on. Your thinking brain is back in control. But sometimes we flip our lids when we don't need to. How we think and behave isn't helpful. You can practice putting your lid back on by breathing slowly or by spending time with someone you trust. This tells your emotional brain you are safe, and it can work with your thinking brain again. Now your whole brain can help you manage your behaviour and your feelings.
So for the rest of this series, we're going to be talking about ways to help that emotional part of your brain work together with your cortex and your frontal lobe to regulate yourself, to work in partnership, to work as a team, to help take care of your body and regulate your body. Our hope today was that from this session number 3 is that you understand the lid model of the frontal lobe for regulation. It's a creative way to think about using this hand model to help remind yourself as a cue, but also to help remind your students perhaps in your classroom as a cue to let them know you've got this limbic area that when it's open, they may respond in ways that's helpful to the situation. But often we need our frontal lobe to come back over and help regulate and control and work in partnership with this area. So you could use this model with your students and help them understand they've got this limbic downstairs and this frontal lobe upstairs part of their brain. Sometimes people refer to the emotional part. Other people will call this the downstairs part of the brain, and this is the upstairs part of the brain. And later we'll show you different exercises in art therapy that you could use this brain model, or maybe you can think of your own in terms of how kids can have a hand on their desk to help them remember, to use their frontal system to regulate their emotions. Please keep track of your questions and your ideas to share with us from session 3 and tell us if this was helpful. We look forward to seeing you again in session 4. Peace be with you. Peace be with your family. Peace be with your community and the world. See you next time.